On a bitter January night in 1994, a mother's car sat empty in an Albuquerque parking lot. The driver's seat was still warm, the keys were missing, and 16-year-old Jonathan Francia had vanished into thin air. 5 days later, in the vast expanse of Arizona's Navajo Reservation, investigators would make a discovery that would haunt them for decades to come. In the charred trunk of a burned-out vehicle lay the stabbed remains of a young man whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is the story of a cold case that would expose the darkest corners of human nature, reveal an unlikely witness, and leave one dangerous killer still walking free among us today. If you're as invested in finding justice for Jonathan as we are, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our true crime community. The evening of January 12, 1994, started like any other for Jonathan Francia, a responsible teenager who had recently started working at Taco Bell. Jonathan had dreams of getting his GED and building a better future. He had borrowed his mother's car to drive a friend to a local restaurant, a simple act of kindness that would prove fatal. As Jonathan waited in the car, two men approached. What happened in those crucial moments would remain a mystery for months. But one thing was certain: Jonathan Francia would never return home. The search began immediately. Missing person posters plastered the streets of Albuquerque. Local news stations broadcast his photo nightly. His mother waited by the phone, praying for any news of her son. But the breakthrough in the case would come from an unexpected source: a man named Scott Johnston, living in Winslow, Arizona. Unknown to Scott, he had welcomed killers into his home. His testimony would become crucial in unraveling this dark mystery. Scott Johnston's ordinary day turned extraordinary when he met a man who introduced himself as Jason. Wearing Western-style clothing and standing around 5 feet 10 inches with a medium build, Jason seemed unremarkable at first. But there was something in his eyes that Scott would never forget. Jason wasn't alone. He was accompanied by Paul Daniel Richardson, a man with a dark past who had recently been released from prison. Neither Scott nor anyone else could have known that these men were carrying a horrific secret. On January 17th, just 5 days after Jonathan's disappearance, the investigation took a devastating turn. In a remote area of the Navajo Reservation, authorities discovered a burned-out vehicle. Inside the trunk lay the answer every searcher had dreaded: Jonathan's charred remains. The autopsy revealed the brutal truth. Before the fire, Jonathan had been stabbed to death. The innocent teenager who had merely been waiting in his mother's car had suffered an unimaginable fate. The investigation accelerated. Scott Johnston's detailed description of Jason led to composite sketches by renowned artist Gene Boylan. But it was Paul Daniel Richardson who would provide the first major breakthrough. Richardson, perhaps haunted by his actions or feeling the pressure of the investigation, confessed to the crime. But justice would take an unexpected turn. Before he could face trial, Richardson died by suicide in his jail cell, taking many answers with him to the grave. But Richardson wasn't the only one with knowledge of that fatal night. His wife, Trina Richardson, initially denied any involvement. However, as investigators dug deeper, her story began to crack. Trina Richardson's facade finally crumbled under the weight of evidence and questioning. In a stunning reversal, she admitted to being present during Jonathan's murder. Her confession painted a horrifying picture of that January night and the events that followed. The truth revealed a senseless crime. Jonathan Francia, a teenager with his whole life ahead of him, had become the random target of two men's violence. No motive, no reason, just the cruel hand of fate putting him in the path of killers. The case against Trina Richardson moved forward, with multiple charges filed related to Jonathan's death. But one crucial piece of the puzzle remained missing: Jason. To this day, the man known only as Jason remains at large. The FBI and local authorities continue their search, armed with Gene Boylan's detailed composite sketches and Scott Johnston's testimony. This dangerous killer could be anywhere, perhaps even watching this video right now. Jason is described as being approximately 5 feet 10 inches with a medium build. In 1994, he favored Western-style clothing and was known to frequent the southwestern United States. While time may have changed his appearance, his actions that night in January 1994 remain frozen in time, a permanent stain on his soul. For Jonathan's family, justice remains incomplete. Their 16-year-old son, brother, and friend was taken from them in an act of senseless violence. While some answers have been found, the final piece of closure eludes them as long as Jason walks free. If you have any information about the man known as Jason or the Jonathan Francia case, please contact your local FBI office. Even the smallest detail could be the key to bringing final closure to this tragic case. Jonathan Francia was more than just another true crime story. He was a young man with dreams, hopes, and a future that was stolen from him. His case reminds us that behind every cold case file is a human story, a family waiting for answers, and a community seeking justice. Let's keep Jonathan's memory alive, and maybe, just maybe, we can help bring his final killer to justice. Remember, someone somewhere knows something. It's never too late to come forward. It's never too late for justice.